Today we check out Arkham Asylum, a serious house on serious Earth. Hello again, Bat fans! In this episode we continue the comic book history of Batman, and it's time to check out one of the most important Batman books ever. The year is 1989, and a new Batman writer came along. His name is Grant Morrison, a Scottish writer who nowadays is a legend in the Batman mythos, but back then he was completely unknown. He had an idea for a Batman story, and alongside artist Dave McKean, they came up with Arkham Asylum. This book is a bit polarizing. On the one hand, it's not your regular comic book story, not in terms of art or narrative at least, and on the other hand, it's the best-selling Batman graphic novel. Now, most people would think that this is because the story is just perfect, but that might not be the case. Arkham Asylum was published just a few weeks after the premiere of the Batman movie, and the Batman merchandise was on very high demand. It was a Batman fever that didn't stop for months. Even the regular comics were selling millions of copies, and that's also why Arkham Asylum performed so well. But the question is the story really worth it? Let's find out, shall we? The book opens with the story of Amadeus Arkham. These are flashbacks taken directly from the Journal of Amadeus, who chronicled his life story, or at least the most important events. The first flashback explains how Amadeus realized that his mother was insane when he was just a kid. We then cut to the present. Commissioner Gordon has summoned Batman because the Joker has taken control of Arkham Asylum. Joker demands Batman to go into the cursed place, and the Dark Knight has no choice. After that comes the second flashback to Amadeus' history. As an adult, Amadeus became a psychiatrist. After dealing with an extremely deranged patient known as Mad Dog, he decided to turn his old family house into a mental institution for the criminally insane. Back in the present, Batman has arrived to Arkham, and the Joker comes to greet him. The hostages are released, and the Joker takes Batman into the madhouse. The inmates have taken over the asylum, and a few doctors chose to remain in the place. Once inside, Batman comes across Harvey Dent, who just pissed himself. Batman wants an explanation, and one of the doctors tells him how they removed Harvey's coin and replaced it with a dice, and then with tarot cards, giving him many other options. However, Batman sees only a broken person, unable to make a simple decision as going to the bathroom. Batman believes the therapy is not working, not for Two-Face and not for the Joker. One of the doctors explains that Joker may not actually be insane. The theory is that he has some sort of super sanity. He is hyper aware of everything that happens around him, which is why he recreates himself each day, sometimes as a harmless prankster and sometimes as a murderous psychopath. The Joker then shows up and suggests Batman to be tested by one of the doctors. Batman agrees, but he has to stop as soon as the memory of the death of his parents come to his mind. Meanwhile, in the flashbacks, Amadeus learns that Mad Dog had escaped from prison, but he decided to turn a blind eye to the fact and ignore the danger. In the present, the Joker tells Batman that he has an hour to find all the inmates that have escaped from their cells. The Joker forces Batman to go looking for them, and he has until midnight to find and stop them all. In the flashback, Amadeus found out that Mad Dog had come into his house and killed his wife and daughter in a brutal way. Meanwhile, Batman comes across several inmates in the dark corridors of Arkham, including Clayface 3, Dr. Destiny, Scarecrow, the Mad Hatter, and Maxi Zeus. In the flashbacks, Amadeus has taken Mad Dog as one of his inmates in Arkham Asylum, but instead of using therapy to treat his madness, Amadeus tortured and killed him. He soon started to realize that madness was like a disease. Finally, Batman comes across Killer Croc and a great battle starts. Batman is almost defeated by the monster, but he manages to overcome the beast and defeats the animal in a deadly fight. At last, Batman finds the one responsible for breaking out all of the inmates. He is one of the doctors, and he found the Journal of Amadeus Arkham. He read the whole book until the end, where Amadeus revealed how he had fallen into madness from a very young age when he killed his own mother. Amadeus believed that his mother went mad because of a great black bat. After reading the journal, the Doctor is convinced that Amadeus was right, that the power behind the madness is the bat, and he blames Batman for everything that has gone wrong. The Doctor explains how Amadeus was eventually locked away as another inmate of his own asylum, where he scratched the floor with a spell to protect himself from the bat as he embraced insanity. Batman realizes that the Doctor has also become insane, but he is too late to stop him. The Doctor attacks Batman and would have killed him if it wasn't for another Doctor who cuts the madman's throat and saves Batman. The night is not over yet, and Batman decides that it's time to give Arkham some of its madness back. Batman decides to release all the inmates, but the Joker has a different idea. He believes that they don't need to go outside because madness has already released them. They are already free, and that's why he wonders what to do with Batman. The Dark Knight suggests to leave that decision to Two-Face, and he gives him back his coin. Harvey flips the coin and he decides that Batman should leave Arkham. Joker bids him farewell and suggests that the real world is in fact the asylum, and that Batman will always have a place in Arkham. Finally, the story ends with Two-Face looking at the coin, which actually landed with the scarred face up. Logically, he should have chosen to kill Batman, but there is no logic in madness. So that's the story. As you can see, this is not a normal kind of Batman story. Heck, it's not even a normal kind of superhero story. Arkham Asylum is more of a psychological chronicle of epic proportions. Grant Morrison wanted to tell a very complex Batman story, focusing on the mind of these iconic characters, and in order to do it, he used Arkham as the perfect place. However, this is not entirely original. Back in the gap between the Golden and Silver Ages, there was a story in Batman number 74 where Batman had to go into a mental institution for the insane to stop the Joker. And then, only 10 issues later in Batman number 84, Batman starts losing his sanity and he is sent to the Gotham Insane Asylum, which was an early version of Arkham. Fast forward to the Bronze Age and we have Batman 327, where Batman has to go undercover into Arkham in order to stop Professor Milo, who has taken control of the asylum. This is one of the best Batman stories ever, and it was written by the legendary Len Wein, who was one of the first writers to explore Arkham Asylum and the psychology of Batman. So, as you can see, the idea of Batman dealing with the madness of Gotham is not really a new concept. In fact, the background story of Amadeus Arkham and Arkham Asylum was not created by Grant Morrison in this story. The origin story of Arkham first appeared in a short paragraph that Len Wein wrote for the notorious Who's Who, the definitive directory of the DC Universe number 1. There, Len Wein created Amadeus Arkham and provided him with all the background story that Grant Morrison used in this story. And now that we know that half of Arkham Asylum was actually written by Len Wein, let's see if the other half of the story is actually any good. Let's start with the characters. Grant Morrison writes a very special Batman. A Batman that I don't like. Morrison's Batman feels completely useless. He is not a Dark Knight. He is not a detective. He is not even a crime fighter. He is just a mentally broken man in a scary costume. For example, what happens when Batman gets to Arkham and realizes that Joker didn't harm the hostages as he claimed he did on the phone? Well, Batman makes a very innocent and silly question. He asks, "What about her eyes?" Like, really? Can you not see the facts right in your face, Batman? Joker lied! That's it! That is a dumb question coming from the world's greatest detective. And what about later, when Joker forces Batman to go looking for the other inmates by killing a hostage? Batman does nothing to save the man. He stands there, refusing to do as the Joker tells him until the madman kills the innocent cop. Batman watches helplessly as Joker kills a man in front of him. Batman shouldn't let that happen. His driving force is to save lives. But no, instead he sits idly and watches the man die. And let's not forget the final fight, when Batman is overpowered and almost defeated by the deranged Doctor. It doesn't make sense. Just a few panels back, Batman defeated an unstoppable monster like Killer Croc, and now he can't even stop a madman in a wedding dress? All I'm trying to say is that Arkham Asylum is a shining example of a poorly written Batman. Now, let's take a look at the enemies of the story. Grant Morrison changed them a lot. The only ones that weren't changed were Two-Face and Professor Milo. All the others were very different. Clayface 3 doesn't need his armor suit, and instead, he is some kind of gross-looking human. The Mad Hatter looks older than usual, and instead of being a crazy guy obsessed with Alice in Wonderland, he is some kind of metafictional character who is aware that everything is a story. But then he vanishes, leaving Batman to question whether or not everything is in his head. Then we have Maxi Zeus, who instead of being a maniac who believes himself to be Zeus, the god of Olympus, is actually an old guy that has many electric wires connected to his head and body. The meaning of this is very unclear, but this is a most drastic change from the traditional character. And then there's Killer Croc. For the first time ever, Croc is shown to be an actual reptile humanoid instead of a human with a skin condition. This Croc looks more like Spider-Man's lizard, and in many years later, the comics would adopt this look for the character. Now, let's talk about the Joker. He is not very different from the usual version, but Grant Morrison does some interesting things with the Joker. And no, I'm not talking about him fingering Batman in the ass. No. Grant Morrison proposes the idea that Joker has some sort of super sanity, and that is the reason why he can be a clown or a killer. This is the first time the idea is used, and the reason why it works so well is because this theory explains the wide range of characters that Joker has had through the ages. From gangster to prankster, this theory explains all the Joker's personalities. And most importantly, it provides a free card for all writers who have different ideas of who the Joker is. That theory works very well in that way, but it sucks, because it takes away any real characteristics from the Joker and allows anyone to come up with anything about the character. This theory will justify anything they decide to do with the character. And that is exactly what's wrong with the character in modern times. But that's a discussion for another day. Now, let's not forget the art by Dave McKean. Instead of using traditional comic art, they decided to use paintings. The thing is that these paintings are unsettling, bizarre, and for some people, straight up ugly. It works very well with the story that Grant Morrison wanted to tell, but for new comic book readers, it can be too much. It's not an easy sequential art to understand. But anyway, one final thing worth mentioning is the fact that the lettering was done by Gaspar Saladino. He was DC's most prominent letterer in the Silver and Bronze Ages, and in this story he started a new style of lettering by giving each character a different font and balloons that matches their personality and psychology. That was groundbreaking back then. And ever since, letterers have started to use different fonts or balloons for different characters, all thanks to Gaspar Saladino. Arkham Asylum is not precisely a good Batman story. It is bizarre, strange, off-putting, and overall, it's a pretentious way to create a graphic novel. And let's not be fooled by the fact that it's one of the best-selling books ever. Remember, this came right after the Batman movie, when people would buy anything about Batman, even cereal, for crying out loud. The redeeming quality of this story is that it worked as an inspiration for the video game Batman Arkham Asylum. The plot is very similar, and there are elements from the story in the game. Aside from that, this is a book I would not recommend anyone to read. What I do recommend is for you to subscribe now, because in the next episode we continue with the legends of the Dark Knight. Until then, Godspeed, my friends.